entrepreneurs. And here we have actually come up with an agri product. Our partner, Gramonati Foundation, guy from IIT Kharagpur, McKinsey's left everything, the US comes back and starts working with the communities, working on areas of innovative agriculture practices. He is a name. And that model of ours in Orissa has gone places. Niti Aayog has created a kind of an ambience for the other aspirational districts to take this model in different geographies in the state, in the country. We can talk about at length as to what is the innovative practices that he's developed. But basically, it's not just a word of farm to fork, but it's a question of building capacities of the farmers to grow innovatively, to change cropping patterns, to work on millets. This is the millet here. You can't keep on growing rice, you can't keep on growing pulses, whether there's a glut in the market or because of the climatic conditions and climate resilient technologies. You're not teaching them what is required to be done in today's context. If you teach them, अगर वो सीख जाएंगे, वो अपनी पुरानी practices जो उनके पास में है, there is a tweak which takes place. They will come out with solutions rather than you coming up with solutions. Bottom up approach. And I think we've got to understand that we have to really work on SDG 17 on partnerships. Not partnerships or just with the NGOs and the corporate partners, but partnerships with individuals, with small communities, with groups. Create a platform so that they have a voice. And I like the way which Shankar had mentioned in the beginning. It's equal partnership. It's not funder-funded partnership. It's not a corporate NGO partnership. कि आपने पैसा दिया है, आप उसी तरीके से काम करें. Excuse me. They know what's required to be done. We may not know. हमारे को इतनी जानकारी नहीं होगी जितनी की जानकारी वो ground level community will have, and therefore we respect each other. हमारे partners help me. I'm not boasting about the fact, but we connect with the head and the heart. When you connect your head and the heart and stop the language of the heart, people understand. Barriers are broken. There is no chasm between the spoken and the led and the follower. Please build that relationship. There are many innovative ways to build that partnership. And if we actually think of doing it, then I am quite confident of ourselves that it's not just CSR, that is looking at the profits piece, that 2% of the profits have to go into innovative technologies with partners. It makes no sense. Big companies have been giving much more than 2%. And I go back 15 years or 16 years ago when again Shankar and myself were on a panel. And Mr. Irani, if I remember correctly, was also part of the panel. That time the conversation of this 2% dialogue was taking place between the government and the development world. Late Mr. Irani, right? He passed away also. Tata Sons chairman. And he said, I don't agree with this kind of a caveat being brought out of the corporations, because some corporates are spending much more. It's not a question of money, it's a question of how you are doing that work innovatively to sustain yourselves, to sustain your profits, and to sustain that connect between the community and the corporate. So with that, I think I'll pause and request, of course, our dear friend to take it on, Mr. Gupta, and some questions afterwards, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hope I'm audible. Maybe I will shout out over my lunch. Is it okay? Yeah, sorry. Thank you. I feel really honored to be part of this august audience. So many learned people are here in panel as well as in the audience, and I'm privileged to put across some points and some insights that I've learned from young people. So I'm bringing their voices and their perspective in this room among all of you, our learning audience. Frankly, like lots of points have been made around sustainability, around innovation, and also how the role of resources as well as community capacities are key in this dialogue. So I will stress more on community capacities because that has already come in. I'm sure all of you know it. You have been doing it for a number of years. Some of you are doing it more than my age, so I'm sure there is a lot of experience in the room. Frankly, what the innovation that I'm urging you all to look at is the approaches that we take to community capacity development. One is we look at them as equal partners, and we emphasize that in all documents, in the speeches that we make, the talks that we give, and even the planning meetings that we have internally. But do we really, in our approach, do we really think that communities are equal? And what capacities we need to build within communities so that they can play that role of being equal in the partnership in development. So there is equal partnership between NGO and resource provider, who could be a corporate, who could be a donor. But in terms of NGO and community, what are the skill gaps that is there which we are talking about? So at Restless Development, the organization that I represent, we try and work with young people. This is a conscious choice that we have made because lots of innovation has been driven by young people. They are recipients of innovation, and also they want to engage with tech, they want to engage with newer ideas, newer age things, newer age challenges, and newer age issues, ranging from their own bodies to climate change. So that's a range of like issues. But what is the skill development we have done with young people, apart from the core skill development agenda that the country is talking about, beyond in terms of engaging with development space? So the young people's leadership, nurturing that requires little long-term investment. I think it has been emphasized over and over again that how short-term approach to capacity enhancement is not a really great approach, and we need to take little long-term like horizon to build capacities and provide space to young people to fail and take up the initiatives that they really care about. In some of the areas that we were working in, what we saw during COVID pandemic, young people were hard hit. They were the people whom you saw migrating, walking long distances on roads on foot. But they were also the people who were innovating at local level. They were also the people who were extending solidarity to the communities that they were working with and they were part of. So this approach in terms of supporting leadership at local level, you may do it through women, you may do it through young girls, you may do it through young people, or you may find your own cohort. But it is very important to invest in that capacity transfer. Otherwise, we may say that we want to have them as equal partners. We may not really have them as equal partners in the room, or we will not capacitate them enough to play that role in the process. Second part, I really want to emphasize on youth-led initiatives. In terms of funding flowing to young people's organizations, we conducted a global research, including lots of almost 800 organizations and initiatives from India also were part of it. And how little resources are going towards youth-led initiatives. That's a big area of concern and worry because they are not able to really attract funding because they are small, they lack experience, and they also may not be able to compete with large organizations which are already established in this space and who have number of years of experience. But believe me, a lot of innovation comes from those small initiatives, those small youth-led, youth-centric, youth-driven initiatives who might be working on a small project on water and sanitation in their local area to bringing voices of young people in climate change debate in the city or urban planning. So they might have different thematic areas which may not be something that the organization is supporting on. But if you look at their approach, they bring a lot of innovation in that approach in terms of how do they deal with those issues and how do they bring their peers and communities together in that dialogue and in that space. Unfortunately, not a lot of funding is going towards those youth-led initiatives because of various factors. I'm sure all of you know, and some of those which I could talk about. So first is the approach in terms of to what extent we capacitate the second half of sustainability, which is community, so that they take ownership, they drive development, and they lead development not just as recipients but as equal partners. And second approach is towards investing in them consciously in their initiatives, even if they fail. I'm sure like all of us have failed in our lives, all of us have done like initiatives from which we have learned, not just failed, and brought more learning to our systems and organizations that we work in. So extending that thing to young people and their initiatives will really go far away. And we know how tech is playing a bigger role nowadays in terms of extension of capacity, in terms of scaling certain initiatives. I think that was eloquently highlighted by both the panelists and particularly the keynote speaker. Sir, here. To my view, young people are ready to receive, ready to engage, ready to play a role of being a leader, because a lot of us feel that young people are leaders of tomorrow, but we do believe that they are leaders today, and they are already engaging in those spaces, they want to engage, but we have to extend that arm. We have to walk half of the step for them to come forward and make that bridge happen in terms of partnership with them. And the last point that I want to really emphasize on, that in terms of innovation, there is a lot of space in the way we design projects and how those design process could be innovated by bringing those community voices in that design space. The initiatives that I think the honorable speakers talked about, all of them had really great community component in terms of learning coming out from communities, not just CSOs and other stakeholders. And if you want government engagement in that space, it is important to drive those initiatives through communities, not as NGOs, not as CSOs, or not as donors, or not as philanthropists in that space. Governments will definitely engage with communities, if not us. So that's the third approach that I will really focus on and emphasize on, that we have to innovate in that space, wherein how do we design interventions, to what extent they are driven by communities, and in our case we are driven by young people, we say, because young people are embedded in local milieu, they are embedded in approaches, they are embedded in the community development discourse at local level, and they want to engage. It's to that we have to kind of make that step forward. So the third area is around developing and creating that space of how do we design development interventions which are little long term but have communities' voices in the room as equal partners while we transfer capacity to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for those insightful ideas and thoughts that we heard. One is, of course, how do we balance this whole ecosystem? Right, what Brigadier Rajiv was speaking about. How do we balance environment? How do we balance sustainability and innovate? Of course, Naval was speaking more about from the youth leadership perspective, and I must say that the fuel for growth today, everybody says youth, but nobody is willing to invest, or very few are willing to invest, let's say. So that is something that sometimes we also offer a lot of lip service. Everybody thinks that people are young at heart, but aging also at the same time. So we need to also provide some space. Shankar started very well. I was noting down a lot of things about whole being profitable, in the process of being profitable, being sustainable, and also mitigating the impact that the being profitable would leave the mark. Talked about long term. Rajiv was talking about how long term will only work if they are relevant. Because these 100 corporations which disappeared out of 95 disappeared because they lost the relevance. So I think relevance is deeply and intricately linked to being sustainable also in long term. And so while we think it is a going concern, that's what my accountant brain tells me, that when we say longevity, we say going concern, that's the technical term that the accountants use. But long term or longevity or going concern without remaining relevant, ultimately they would disappear. And so impact we talked about, and the issue of resources. You see, all the time sustainability is linked to resources all the time. And yesterday I was speaking in Bhubaneswar in another conclave where some of the CSR and non-profits are there. And what I also realized is that some of us are speaking about how can we have certain programs even without capital intensive investments in that. So some of the rural level non-profits who were there, they were saying that lots can be done even without a lot of money going into it. But we have made it a very capital intensive programs. So that is also another very important point that was coming up. innovation is extremely critical because we know that Uber owns the largest fleet of cars without winning even one. And taking advantage of the limitations of the Uber model, Blue Smart came in. They said, what we offer you? No cancellations, well-behaved drivers, and of course, electric cars. So innovation on innovation. And so innovation cannot stop. If you stop, and then you become, there is risk of becoming redundant. Of course, there is in corporates, it's capital intensive. Now we all talk about startups. No startup is becoming profitable, except today morning I learned that Paytm has become profitable, and Zomato is saying that we will also become profitable one day. So this whole thing is going on. And so remaining relevant, I think, is important when we talk about being sustainable as well, both for non-profit space as well as in the corporate space. So with this, I'll now open for a round of plenary. Your questions, suggestions, both on the keynote as well as the first set of speakers. You are welcome to speak. I think the microphones will be passed around. Just indicate, yes, can you share the microphone here in the second row here? Yeah. You can take one here.
So, it was
Hello.
myself, Vasu, and I was really happy to hear about CSR and some initiatives also. But my question is to the panel, like when we talk about CSR and the Companies Act and the CSR rule of 2014, and the companies like Tata, Jindal contribute more than the required standard and the percentage, and they make an impact, and the impact is huge and effective. But what about the companies which do have an independent director and do have a CSR report which is being published, but the impact is not being shown, and we talk about innovation for sustainable impact and it's not effective. So my question is, should a separate regulator be established by government to take punitive actions against the company which cannot make impact, because it's at the end of the day the shareholders' money and also the money of the society. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. So the question is, should we have a regulator to regulate further? Okay, we'll hold that question. Maybe we can have opinions. We are not the people who are making the laws. So, but then probably an opinion will be. We will pick up few questions and then start. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please identify yourself and then you can ask the question.
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I am Sanjeev Sarani from Indian Gramin Services. So it's a brilliant conversation. Brigadier Rajiv has been in his insights. So he was talking about the collaboration, particularly in the Kalinganagar situations. The Tata is there, Jindal is there, Nilachal and many more. But my questions remains, because this is also relevant for any locally led development in India. Even if we are working closely with the community, with a lot of local actors. But my question is, who will initiate those collaborations? And how do we ensure those collaboration is transformative? Thank you.
Okay, who will initiate those collaborations is the question. Yes, sir. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, you.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I am Anand from NBJK, and it was a very nice talk, and it was very good to learn. My question is, I have two questions. One question is with Shankar sir. Just to understand, because this development sector and CSR and everything has evolved. So earlier it started with sustainability, then we talked about CSR, and now we are talking about ESG. So I'm just trying to understand like what is these three, how these three are connected, or how these three are different. Because when we are approaching corporate for supporting our initiatives, which is the best platform, which is the best person to approach to. And the other question is, I'm from Jharkhand and it is one of the least CSR expenditure states. So as a development organization from one of the poorest states with least CSR expenditure, what should we do, what can we do as a grassroots organization to reach to these corporates so that they can support us in our initiatives?
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
May I go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Myself, Praveen Singh from Apnale, Mumbai. My question is to understand the innovation and sustainability part and where to fix the responsibility. We can talk about the importance of innovation, we can talk about the importance of sustainability, but where can we zero down? Who is the responsible? Are we making an enabling ecosystem where the implementing organization will have lots of opportunity through various stakeholders, whether it is young people, women, children, or is it the donor, or is it an entire government supporting system? Even if you are getting paid, that is perfectly fine. Is this an acceptable behavior, even in corporate, if they are supporting any development initiatives? So I am not finding, as a practitioner, the perspective I want to bring here is lots of burden and lots of pressure on implementing organization to innovate. Innovate without resources, innovate in the, so for me innovation is not a substandard quality to achieve. If I have to achieve something, it can't be compromised on the quality aspect. If we are compromising the quality aspect and saying it's an innovation, I'm sorry, that is not going to be okay with this. So my question in short is that where is the responsibility of the corporate to create the innovative environment or sustainability environment to ensure that implementation partner can take risk and corporates and donors and government agencies are okay with it, even if you are not able to say that this percentage mother mortality rate has gone down, but you have innovated something and I can definitely support you. So that ecosystem really I want to understand from the panel.
Okay. Thank you. The last we'll take in this round that from there, and then we'll come for the second round. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, panelists, and good afternoon, audience. I'm Akshay Jain, and I work with an organization which works for rights of persons with disabilities based in New Delhi. And our primary job is to do advocacy-based research, and we work with governments and other state partners as well. So my question to you is, I've been in the field for about 3 to 4 years now, and there's one challenge that we face when we're seeking fundings or when we're connecting with the corporates or any CSR partners. And the issue that we come across is disability and advocacy is not kept on a priority. And for one reason, advocacy is not a priority for any CSR partner is there is no measurable impact. So could you, from the perspective of corporates or CSR partners, enlighten as to is that the only reason, or there are any other perspectives to it or any other reasons to it, why advocacy is not kept on the priority? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we will have a round of responses from the panelists. You are free to pick up any question that you would like to answer.
I think the first question was on to regulate those who are not reporting their impact. In fact, the answer was in his speech, in Sankar's speech and in Williams' speech, that if you will not report on sustainability, it means you are not doing work on your sustainability or impact. Certainly, market will regulate you. Market will see you, and your company will not be there after some time. So these are the reasons. So in fact, society will make you out of the market. So that is the ultimate reason. So no regulator is required. Regulator, above regulator cannot solve things.
Okay, I think on Sanjeev, you had asked this question of who will initiate collaboration, right? Now, I'm a bit quizzed myself. Collaboration between the corporate and the NGO, or collaboration between a corporate and a corporate? There are two things here. I'll touch upon the first one. I know that we've got the top 100 NGOs as per the Credibility Alliance indicators, as per the Institute of Corporate Affairs, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, etc., etc. And many of us would say that I think we will go by the top 50 or top 10. But there are some of us also who say that forget about that listing. Because the NGO sitting over here from Jharkhand or from Orissa or from some remote part are not even understood or thought of when we make that listing, when we create the indicators. And I'm sure some of my panelists over here will disagree with me. But my take is, when I collaborate, I give a chance to those who are unheard of, and some of them are brilliant. Innovatively, they create that kind of a platform that we are looking at. So it's something which I think the CSR head, the sustainability guy who's handling it, who has a direct connect right in the top, can make that collaboration possible. And I'm genuine about it. The second piece is collaboration between corporates. I told you, the large corporates are sitting in Kalinganagar. But if I, from Jindal's, tell Tatars or tell some other partner that let's collaborate and create a space for the environment, let's work on pollution, let's work on the water piece, let's work on some women empowerment or disability or whatever. The question comes, Jindal ka kya interest hai? ये क्यों कर रहे हैं? Why are they asking us? हमने try करा है, agriculture I tried like anything. Very excited about it, great piece, great work. When it comes to active brass tacks, there are challenges. Therefore, we need people like India Donates, Global Compact, CII, PhD Chambers, as a common platform who can bring people together and make people see through and collaborate. The second point regarding Akshay, I can touch upon all, but Akshay, I'd like to touch your point also about disability and advocacy. Why is it not a priority? Why is it not a priority? I'll ask you. It should be a reasonable priority because there are many challenges, as I mentioned, in the extractive and the manufacturing sector. You've got to look after a number of areas of engagement. It's not like a service industry or an IT industry or an education or a healthcare, which can only focus on one or two areas of intervention. We at Jindal Stainless have got a very major project with disabilities. But we're focusing not on all disabilities. We're focusing on hearing impaired with vision, with eye, health care. So we've taken these two challenges and we're going ahead. And across geographies, we've got projects, but selfishly around our plant locations, as we don't have that scale to go across pan-India. So disability is very important. I agree with you, very few corporates are working on disability. Very unfortunate, but I think it's important. And whether it's PH or you go to the MR cases or many other cases of disability, we need to start engaging more and more. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, Shankar?
Yeah, I'll just address Anand's question on the terms that get used, sustainability, CSR, ESG. I think it's very confusing. A lot of the time it confuses me. I prefer to use the word sustainability for what is core to the way a business runs its business. A sustainable business is one that runs its business where it tries to find the balance between making profits, its impact on society, and its impact on the environment. That's looking at that holistically is sustainability. So CSR is a component, in my view, of sustainability. It's one of the ways by which you address the social impact that you have. But sustainability is a much larger and holistic concept in my view. What is ESG? To me, the terms ESG and sustainability get used interchangeably. But the easiest way to think about it is the way it is, way most people understand ESG. It is about measuring what you're doing in each of these things, and it inevitably results in a rating. And that's really what, when people say ESG, they in their heads, they're using that as a code for ESG rating. So MSCI, Sustainalytics, Dow Jones Sustainability Index, all of these have various forms of ratings for sustainability. So ESG is sort of seen from that point of view. But I look at it as just how you look at and manage your impacts as a business. So I use ESG and sustainability. In fact, I don't like to use the word ESG, although the company I work with, we use ESG because it's a term invented by the finance world, and we are a financial services company, so that's really where you go. But I would not worry too much about these terms. But CSR is different. We've got to be very clear. CSR is what you do with the profits. Sustainability is a larger thing of how you make the profits as well as what you do with the profits. I just want to touch upon the point that Rajiv also talked about to Akshay's question on advocacy, not the PWD question. I think there are, Rajiv, of course, is right, more experience. Not enough companies working on PWD, with PWDs. But of course, I think the more fundamental role that companies can work to impact the people with disability is less from CSR and more from what they do in their core business. How do they employ, how do they capacitate, make them part of supply chains? To my mind, that's where the big impact comes, not so much from CSR. But I just want to pick up the advocacy point that you made, and this is not true just for advocacy for PWDs, but advocacy in general. I think, it is, what is advocacy at the end of the day? It is about using evidence to seek policy change. This is not something that companies are in the business of. Okay, so to expect a company to fund advocacy efforts is asking them to do something which is completely alien to them. This is the role of funding agencies. This is what funding agencies should be doing. So, to my mind, I would never advise an NGO to go to write a proposal to a company on advocacy, because this is not what they do. This is not the business of a company. This is not what they understand. This is not core to their being. So I think you're putting a round peg into a square hole, or the other way around, by doing that. So I would certainly think of it very differently. And I just want to, the question I think was asked by Praveen on who is responsible for innovation and what. So basically, innovation comes out of an ecosystem. You're right, but I think the mistake would be to wait for that ecosystem to exist before you start innovating. I think innovation has to be the way of life, and I can tell you who are potentially the threats to innovation. Those are the donors. They are potentially the threats to innovation. But they're also potentially the enablers of innovation. So it's up to us as innovators to be innovative in the way we approach and ask for that innovation. Many of us, I think, and this is a conversation Sanjay and I had just before this, many of us, when we write a proposal, it's the same hisa-pita way of doing things. We don't even in our proposal think differently. So I think that's the starting point. In your proposal, you're going to start thinking differently. Then let's talk about whether your donors are willing to support it or not. But if we start with the assumption that वो तो मना ही करेंगे तो हम करने का कोई फायदा नहीं है, then you've lost the battle before it's even been joined. So I think we need to get out of that mindset, and we need to say, if it is genuinely innovative, if you believe in that innovation, you need to put it out into a proposal itself, and forget the proposal. Even after all the funding happens, on a day-to-day basis, you're innovating all the time. you are innovating without realizing. So there's an ecosystem within that grant itself by which you are innovating. So you are innovating. Period. So I won't wait for an ecosystem, wait for some other player to come and help you do that. You just have to keep doing it yourself. It has to be part of who you are. Collaborations help, and that's the point that Rajiv also made. SDG 17. Collaborations are crucial because the more diverse minds address a problem, innovation happens. So collaboration between you and your donor, collaboration between you and another NGO. In fact, let me go off slightly to a tangent to a question that Rajiv answered about what happens in Kalinganagar, about companies not necessarily collaborating. Even NGOs don't collaborate. I think it's part of the problem of India. We don't collaborate. We see everybody as competitors. But moment you collaborate, you see a completely different way of innovation. And I'll tell you my personal story. When I used to head sustainability in the Tata Group, every 3-4 months, I used to have lunch with my counterpart in the Mahindras, my counterpart in Aditya Birla Group. We used to exchange what we used to do because we are not competing in sustainability, we are exactly on the same side. So you can find areas of commonality, and that's where innovation starts happening. You do innovations on your own, you do innovations along with colleagues, you do innovations with competitions, you do innovations with completely different actors but who have a similar goal in mind. That's how innovation happens. Don't wait for an ecosystem, for sure.
Thank you. That's brilliant what you just concluded with. But we'll take only 2 more questions, if Madam here, and then Sir. Yeah. And then we have to move to the next segment.
In the beginning, of course, it's a very distinguished panel, but I do have a question for the organizers, that why is it so masculine heavy? I wonder. I mean, I am a feminist, and some of the very fine men I know are feminists as well. So maybe organizers, please next time, thodi equality, gender equality, that's also an SDG goal. You know? Well, having said that, please, it does not take away from the expertise of the panel, and I fully admire it. So now my question is really a funny one. Well, it's Shankarji, aapne bhi kaha, and then Brigadier Williams also. And I fully agree with you that corporates must first do in their own backyard. You know, you're after all the people who are working for you, their families come first, their children come first, everything. I mean, it goes without question. But now, let me give you an example, like builders. Let me take 2 builders we approached. One is Omax. So Omax builders also, most of the builders and other people also, I'm just giving an example of the builders, they started their own foundations. So when you ask Omax for a CSR thing, we have our own foundation, you know. We want for education for our slum children, preschool, whatever. No, we have our own school, we have our own health center, we do women empowerment, you know. Also Ansel API, just giving an example. Until they were Ansel API and did not have a foundation, they funded us. The moment that they had Sushil Ansel Foundation, they sort of went haywire, you know. So I'm just wondering what happens, and there's one more question, and that is, these days, I've been in the social sector, I run a Gandhian NGO. My name is Dr. Suman Agarwal, Dr. Suman Khanna Agarwal actually, the full name. Khanna married to an Agarwal, can't leave out the Khanna also. So, been in the social sector for non-profit for 20 years. 2024 we will be celebrating our 20 years, so it's a long time. And of course, my experience, and I wonder why this is so. These days when you go to websites of CSR websites, they're so hidden, so opaque, so blocked. You can't even find a CSR, who's the person you should talk to. There'll be no email. It's all very hidden. I don't know why. Even companies like Nestle, I don't know baki sabka kya tajrba hai. Lekin, it's so difficult to find the guy who you to approach. So, and I must confess, we've done rather well, working in 17 slums in South Delhi and in Tughlakabad village. And it's a holistic NGO, Gandhian Health. So we work in education, health, women empowerment, skill development, and whatever. So, it's so different. And for us, all our funding through CSR, of course, has only come through where somebody had a personal contact. For example, our senior vice president, Mrs. Rishi, she joined us in 2005. I'm just a professor. Nobody knows academicians, but everybody knew her. She was the senior general marketing manager for India Today. So she got us. Because of that, we got whatever contacts from Ansel API, SAIL, GAIL, ONGC, whatever. But without that personal contact, we just could not make headway. At least we couldn't. Maybe other people could.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, last part, I must be very fair also here. I must say that in the past years, for example, Azim Premji Foundation, they actually contacted us out of the blue. They got a call from them that they want us to do a project on women empowerment. That, and then there was another call from TBZ, Tibuban Bhimji Zaveri Jewelers. They also contacted us. And of course, it's not that they didn't do due diligence. The Azim Premji does a lot of due diligence. It takes 6 months. Comes there and checks all your accounts and whatever. But that was also very, very, how we felt very good about it, and we are implementing the project.
Close your thank you.
Yeah, so please tell me why this is okay.
We'll take another question from Sir there. Be brief in your response.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Sarjeet Udeja. When we are talking about innovation, this innovation should be people-oriented. The way recently we had a vaccine, it was a people-oriented, that's why it has a huge success. If we just make some things, it's not a reaching to the target, it's a wastage of. The way you pointed out, 2 companies survived, Tata and IBM, because they were people-oriented, and they were innovating every time. Now we see iPhones, every 6 months is a one series. So they are surviving. Now we are having G20, B20, so we can have an innovation with this all G20 groups, B20 groups. So it can be global also. We should have a global approach, otherwise we will be small group which will have no consequences. So my urge is that earlier we used to have a CSR, then they used to have their annual lunch and gifting and all these things. Now this CSR can be used for research purpose, R&D, that can make impact, otherwise it will be just a ritual.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll have to move, but before that, I have a moral duty to respond to Madam's question that why there are no one woman in the panel. I want all, just 1 second, just allow me to answer. I want all the India Donates team to stand up, please. All the people who work in India Donates, except for a finance officer, all of them are women. All of them are women. We are extremely gender sensitive. Unfortunately, we lost one panelist who had a health hazard. We approached many who refused because of other engagements, and otherwise, please be assured that we are extremely gender sensitive organization. That is one statement that I really wanted to make. Thank you for raising it so that it's in public, everybody should be aware. You talked about foundations, meaning basically you talked about, I think, implementation. So foundations doesn't mean that they implement. Foundations could be also grant making. But foundations means what, in your context, what you meant was that they start directly implementing, therefore they are not able to sub-grant. And therefore you are not able to get money. Yes, that is true. And also, you talk about transparency, which is a very important one, because right now it's all in your own contacts. If you know somebody or don't know somebody, there is no way in which genuine NGOs who are doing good work have an access. So it's all informal connections, etc., which need to be streamlined and worked out. Of course, that's an important point that you have made. Well, now anything that the panelists would like to
I'll just add to Ma'am Khanna, jo aapne bataya hai. Regarding foundations, right? I mean, corporates have come up with their foundations in some couple of years, some long time. Now, as Dr. Patra mentioned, that it is not that they are implementing everything themselves. We've got partners. We've got partner NGOs with the foundation. It's not only the partner with the corporation, but the foundation partners are there. Whether it's Jindal Stainless Foundation, whether it's Tata Rural Development Society, you've got partners. And I think it's important, as you rightly mentioned, that connect is important, to connect with the guy who's responsible. But there are some who are reaching out, like Premji Foundation. reached out to you, did not perhaps know you. So there are innovative ways of reaching out. There's not the question of transparency, not that it should be there. Maybe we are also responsible, and so are many others, but some of us may not be so worried about transparency, because transparency is critical. And today you can't hide anything, and why should you?